Welcome to Christine's Faith Over Fear.
Well, good evening, everyone. Come on in, sit down. Let's have a good old talk tonight. I hope you guys are having a fabulous Thursday because I know that I am. In spite of, I am having a fabulous, fabulous Thursday. And I've had a blessed week so far. So, shout out, first of all, to God, who is the head of my life. To Mr. Jason Wilson, I thank you so much for everything that you do behind the scenes. And then I want to give a special shout out to my LinkedIn family, my Facebook family, my Instagram, and my YouTube family, and anyone else out there who may be watching or listening tonight. I thank you so much for joining me on tonight. And a big round of applause and a hug and a love shout out to my sister in law, Miss Gloria Phillips. She's in the house. Hey, sis. So, tonight, you guys, I wanted to talk about Romans chapter 12, verse 21. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. You know, we have so much evil and so much darkness in the world, but we are able to overcome that with good. That is a known fact. So, our main message for tonight is that we are called not to mirror the darkness around us, but to be light. We are supposed to be light at all times. You know, responding to evil with intentional goodness rooted in Christ's love. And that should be all the time, all day, every day, even though it is hard sometimes. I agree 110%. It is hard sometimes, but it is possible. Through God, it is possible. Romans 12 says that, Romans 12 is not just a passive call to be nice, it is actually an active response, meaning that that is something that we are supposed to do. No matter what a person says, no matter what a person does, that is what we are supposed to do by following God's word. That is what we are supposed to do. So, you guys, what does being overcome by evil look like? And if anyone can put that in the chat so that I can read your response, I would love to do that tonight because, uh, for example, we have reacting in anger, bitterness, revenge, apathy. You know, there are so many times that I can remember before I came to Christ how I would respond or react to certain things. And back then I had that attitude of that get back at you, that get back at you attitude. If you done me wrong, then I was going to get back at you. And that's exactly what that is talking about, and we are not supposed to do that especially as believers and as Christians. We are not supposed to do that. It is all about love, and that's what we're supposed to show, even in spite of. At all times, we are supposed to show love. Um, so, something else that we do is that we allow the world's values or fears to dictate our actions. We have and I say we as a society, because I've done that in the past as well, going by what I've seen others say or seen others do, and I react or respond in the same way, and we're not supposed to do that. So we need to be very, very careful when it comes to doing, I always say, doing evil for evil, you can't get anything out of it. I mean, when you think about it, what's the purpose? What is the purpose? It may feel good in the moment, but you end up paying the price for it. Sooner or later, you will pay the price for it. So, what does it mean to overcome evil with good? We overcome evil with good by choosing mercy, choosing forgiveness, kindness, love, like I just spoke of, being understanding, being of service, to maybe someone that has wronged you, and you see that they need help, instead of saying, I'm not going to help them because you turn that thing around and you say, no, I'm not going to be like that. In spite of, in spite of, this is what I'm going to do for them, you know, and that is something that should be done, I believe, between you and that person. It's not something that you do to boast and to brag about, because you won't get blessed like that, because that means it's not coming from your heart, so it should just be between you and that individual, not unless that individual would like to share what you've done for them, in spite of, even when it's hard, you still have to do the right thing, even when it's hard. And it's not always easy. Life is not easy, but that's a part of, I believe, our strength and our growth, is being able to overcome evil with good, by the grace of God. And we are able to do that, you know, responding in a way that reflects God's character, and not our emotions, because emotions is such a bad thing, because one minute your emotions is up and the next minute your emotions are down. Your emotions are not stable. So therefore, I say all the time that we should never act on emotions, because when we act on emotions, 9 times out of 10 is going to get us into trouble, or into worse trouble than what we're already in, because we end up saying something or doing something that we should not have said or done, point blank, period. So if at all possible, try your very best to keep your emotions out of it. You can get in your emotions in the moment, but then you need to immediately let those emotions go, because it's not good. It's not good at all. uh, and I'm not telling you what I think, I'm telling you what I know. So yeah, take it from me, it's not good. We have the power of goodness as, a spiritual existence. And goodness is not weakness, you guys. Goodness is actually, I believe, spiritual warfare, because we need that in times of spiritual warfare. And if that's something that you do not believe in, trust me, it is very, very much real. Um, Real and very much alive. So we need to be careful. Jesus overcame evil not through force, because he's not a forceful God. He's a very kind, gentle, and loving God, but through the cross. That was the ultimate, and I mean the ultimate good, conquering evil. I mean, I don't think any one of us could conquer evil the way that Jesus conquered evil for each and every one of us on that cross. As a matter of fact, I know there's not. There's just no way possible. No way possible, because it is not, we're not built for that, you know. Um, so we should be very, very thankful. Very thankful. We also have the power of choice. In everything, we have a choice. So it's up to us to make the right choice in the moment. In a split second, it is very important that we make the right choice, because that is kind of like life and death in the power of the tongue if you do not make the right choice. A quick shout out to Miss Leanna. Hello, beautiful. And Miss Rochelle, nice to see you, my queen. So glad you guys could make it tonight. Yes, spiritual warfare is very, very real. Very real. And we must know how to deal with spiritual warfare. And we cannot deal with that in the natural. We have to deal with spiritual warfare in the spiritual side of things, not the natural, because we cannot defeat it in the natural. It's not meant to be defeated in the natural. Only in the spiritual are we able to do that through Christ. We must remember, uh, evil will always present itself. And I do mean always. And it does not matter whether it is through people, circumstances, or internal struggles. And sometimes the internal struggles are worse than the ones that we deal with through people and circumstances. Because a lot of people don't know what's going on within a person, deep down on the inside of them, and I've said it before, we're good at wearing those masks in front of people, but what about when we get behind those closed doors? What about when we're all alone? What about those struggles, those internal struggles versus the external struggles? But we are given the choice to respond with good. And there's that key word again, choice, because we do have a choice. It doesn't do any good to do evil for evil, because, like I said, you get nothing out of that. Absolutely nothing at all. And we must remember that darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can drive out darkness. And that is through God's light. That is the only way that darkness can be driven out. The only way. A good example is when we get hurt by someone's words or someone's actions. We have a choice. We can choose to be silent, to be kind to that person, and to keep them in prayer. Or you can do the opposite. which is negative, all the way around negative, being evil, hateful, envious, spiteful, jealous, all of those things. That's part of darkness. That's part of evil. And none of those words scream out good. They don't even sound good when you even say those words to yourself. Um, Instead of revenge, you know, it's just we live in such a, or we are living in such a dark time, and seems like there is more evil than there is good. But you guys, I don't believe that. I really don't, because of the God that I serve. So I do not believe that evil wins. It can try, yes, and it will, and it has, and it will continue to. But we serve a God who is mighty, who is awesome. And God says that the battle is His. So therefore, everything belongs to Him, So I just don't believe that evil is winning, no matter what it looks like, no matter what it feels like, no matter how it seems. I just do not believe that evil is winning. I really don't. Uh, that's just my personal opinions, guys. It really is. Just um, then we have Jesus as the perfect example. And what better example that he gives on the cross? Um, and remembering what Jesus said when he was on the cross and he prayed. And he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Luke 22:34. And, sometimes I sit and I think about Jesus being on that cross. And, I still can't fully wrap my head around what he went through and what he had to endure for all of us, not some of us, but for all of us. And I tell you what, it gives me the chills to think about it sometimes. You know, um, because I think, my God, there is no one walking the face of this earth that I know that would do for us what he did for us. And he hadn't done anything wrong. So it's just, it's really something to think about. It really is something to think about. We serve a mighty God, you guys, a mighty God. That is the maximum picture of overcoming evil with good when you think about Jesus on that cross, responding to cruelty with compassion. Because how many people do you know that would be on that cross and would be able to say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do? That's compassion from the heart. That is compassion. Wonderful counselor. Wow. You know, forgiveness disarms the enemy and it breaks cycles of hate. And that's why we must continue to overcome evil with good, because it does break the cycle of hate. And I know with everything going on around us, it doesn't seem like it, but I believe that it does. It really does. Forgiveness is powerful. And always, always remember that it is not for them, it is for you. It is for each and every one of us who chooses to forgive, who chooses to be free, because it indeed sets you free. Big shout out to my sister, Miss Amy Powers, who says, in the end, evil will not prevail. And that is so true, Amy. So, so true. Good to see you tonight, sis. Um, you know, we are a blessed people, you guys. We really are. When we stop and look around, you know, with things that's going on around us, and then not only that, but in the third world countries, we are really and truly blessed. And it just behooves us that we should count our blessings more. We should be more thankful and less complaining about things, because we are truly, truly blessed. And then there are practical ways to live out this, pray for those, and I say it all the time, pray for those who have wronged you. Don't talk about them. Love them. Reverse that curse. Whenever you see them, be good to them. Treat them good. If they need something, do it for them. Don't turn your back on them. Matthew 5:44. Bless instead of curse. Speak life even when others will not speak life. That's one of my favorite things to say, is to always speak life into someone else's life. Not only your life, first of all, speak life into your life, and then speak life into others' lives as well. See, we can't be so selfish where it's all about me, 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 me. No, we are supposed to be a blessing to others as well. And speaking life into others' lives is a blessing, because there are some who does not know how to speak life into their lives. So if you know how, speak life into that person's life. It is, I can tell you, one of the best feelings in the world. And you do not have to know that person. Do not have to know a person in order to speak life into their life. Not negative, but life, which is positive. Do acts of kindness. You know, you just never know what a smile could mean to a person that's going through something, or that may be having a bad day. 100% Amy. Amy says, be an encourager. And that is so, so true. We should encourage one another at all times because we never know what a person is going through. You know, they could look good from the outside, but you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. So encourage them, lift one another up. You know, that's something that I try my best to do on a daily. And I enjoy lifting up others, no matter what I'm going through. Because guess what? It's not about me, it's all about Him, meaning Yahweh, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Nissi. That's who it's about. A helping hand, or even silence in the face of provocation, can shift the atmosphere. You know, sometimes we don't even have to say anything. Sometimes just being a listening ear, just a shoulder to cry on for someone, could make someone's day. Sometimes a person just needs someone to listen to them and not speak. And that's okay. That is absolutely okay. But it's still a blessing. Being in silence is still a blessing. Because guess what? God does it all the time. And He is not only the gift, but He is also the giver. So we're blessed all the time. All the time. You know, and I say when God is silent, He's working on our behalf. He's taking care of His business. And so with that being said, we need to take care of ours. We need to do our part. Let God be God, and then we need to do our part. Guard your heart. I love that. Guard your heart. That is actually the name of my book. Guard your heart. And that is so, so true. We must refuse to let bitterness take root. Proverbs 4:23. No, bitterness is it's just so nasty and so ugly, you know, and it can make a beautiful person be absolutely ugly. And I tell you what, that was me a while back. And that was one of the reasons that I did not like the person that I seen in the mirror because of all of the bitterness. So it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. It's really not. And then we have spiritual warfare, a very dangerous thing. And if you do not know about spiritual warfare, please read up on it. Please do your research about it because it is very real. You know, I didn't think much of spiritual warfare until several years ago. And I had read a young lady's book from our church. She had wrote a book about spiritual warfare, and I got the book and I read it. And it amazed me because I thought, I'm living it. I'm living in spiritual warfare, and I hadn't even recognized it. because I had heard about it, but I didn't really know about it. And I tell you what, it opened my eyes to so many things, to know that it was right here in my home that I was dealing with the way that I was dealing with things and handling things, and, just things that were going on just all around us, was spiritual warfare. And then lo and behold, I think a couple of Sundays after I had actually read the book, our bishop had actually spoke on spiritual warfare. So when I tell you that it is very much real, it is real, and it will destroy you if you do not know how to handle it. Evil thrives when it gets a reaction, and that is so true. It's like evil can't wait to get a reaction from you, you know. Goodness rooted in Christ frustrates the enemy. So, like I said, we have the choice to turn it around, to turn that evil around. When we choose, and listen to this, guys, very carefully. When we choose love over hate, forgiveness over grudges, faith over fear, we are waging spiritual warfare. I'm going to say that one again. When we choose love over hate, forgiveness over grudges, faith over fear, we are waging spiritual warfare. And that, my friends, is what it is all about. Every last one of those that I just mentioned. That's what it is about. And when it comes to spiritual warfare, that's how we are able to defeat it, by using those weapons. Those are the weapons that God has provided for us. So we should always be ready for battle and using God's weapons, because man's weapons will not work, but God's weapons will work every single time to defeat it, no matter how many times. Because trust you me, it won't happen once. It's going to happen more than once. Amy says God will show up if you step out in obedience to Him. That is so true. If you obey, I can guarantee you that God will have your back 110%. He'll show up and He will show out every time if you obey. Amy always also said that is why I am trying to find a place to share my encouragement signs to share with strangers. And that is such a blessing, Amy. That is such a blessing. And like I said, we don't have to know people to share encouragement, to share and to show love, to share and to show kindness. And it's priceless. It is absolutely priceless. What does it cost you to speak? What does it cost us to be kind, to encourage one another? And it only takes a matter of seconds, really, to do it. It really does. That's all it takes. I thank God for this platform every day because this is my way of encouraging, of showing kindness, of showing love. And my prayer is that as I show it, that it is being received from all people, ones that I know and the ones that I don't know, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. That is part of who I am, and that is part of my service work. And this is how I love to pay it forward. Every Thursday, this is how I love to pay it forward. I really do. So, once again, I just want to thank Mr. Jason Wilson for all he does behind the scene. He is really and truly a brother in Christ. You guys just remember that good is not weakness, it is God's strength on display. Good is not weakness, it is God's strength on display. And that is so true. And then we have encouragement for the weary. Sometimes responding with good feels unfair or impossible, especially when the hurt runs deep. But I tell you what, and I can resonate with this, it feels good when I respond to a person that has hurt me or offended me in some way, when I'm able to respond to them in a positive way instead of in a negative way, and instead of being nasty to them. And it has nothing to do with patting myself on the back, but it's that feeling of knowing that God did that. But God. Because, in the beginning, it wasn't easy for me to try to be that positive person to someone who had hurt me. It wasn't easy at all, and I don't think any one of us can say that it has been or that it was. But by the grace of God, I'm not that person anymore. So I choose. There's that word again, choose. I choose to forgive. And so when we choose to do the right thing, and when we choose to forgive, it makes a difference because it's coming from your heart. And not only do you know that it's coming from your heart, but God knows that it's coming from your heart. And that's that obedience that Amy was talking about. And it feels good because, like I said, at the end of the day, it is all about Him. It's all about Him. We should encourage them that it's not about willpower, it's about God's power working through us. It has nothing to do with our willpower because we can't do anything without Him. Absolutely nothing can we do on our own strength without God. We are going to go to a commercial break, and then I will be back with my last closing remarks. Hold on, I'll be right back. Thank you.
God can heal, deliver, restore, and renew. When you take God out of it, you leave the door wide open for the enemy to come in. Mustard Seed Faith to Unshakable Faith and No God, No Peace by author Christine Bailey are available now on Amazon.
Thank you. I am back, you guys. Thank you for hanging in there with me. So, my closing thought for tonight is when we are able to overcome evil with good, we don't just win the battle. We shine God's light for the world to see. Once again, when we overcome evil with good, we do not just win the battle. We shine God's light for the world to see. I thank you guys so much for joining in with me tonight. I hope that you have a blessed weekend coming your way. Be safe, stay safe. Remember, all lives matter, you guys, and it is all about Him. Thank you so much, and I will see you next Thursday. Good night.
Thanks for watching Christine's Faith Over Fear. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week.